Welcome back to ILA On Air. I'm Anastasia, CEO and co-founder of ILA Law. And in these podcasts, we bring you short, sharp, property, finance-focused education from experts in the industry. At ILA, we have a network full of brokers, solicitors, developers, event hosts, you name it, we've got it. And we sit them down and we turn the complicated simple, something we love doing at ILA. So buckle up, you've got 20 minutes, grab a cuppa and we're going to bring you up to speed. Today, I'm joined by Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good. I was going to intro the companies that you have, but I don't think I can list all of them. So would you mind saying who they are? You do so many things.
Yeah. So I've got Casita Properties, which is my investment property company. I have Peak Performance Events with our mutual friend Aaron, which is all about entrepreneurship. Property and Entrepreneur Summit, which brings my two passions together, which is entrepreneurship and property. And I've got the Training Made Simple Academy as well, which is my business and property coaching company.
Amazing. You're doing so much in the industry, and that's why you're the perfect expert to have on board today to talk about different creative strategies. So I want to jump straight in at the deep end and talk about what creative strategy is really underrated right now, but is really powerful.
I would say assisted sales for sure. That's the strategy that I use. Are you familiar with assisted sales?
I'm about to ask you that. I'm about to say,
cool.
Because what we want to do here is for me, I have no idea what any of these experts are talking about because it's not my expertise. And also I imagine for so many listeners, we're like, what does that mean? So yeah, hit me up with what that means.
So an assisted sale is essentially what it says, assisting somebody to sell a property which typically hasn't been able to sell. So your probate property, so maybe your grandparents have passed away, the house hasn't been updated since the 70s, got a nice avocado bathroom. I was going to say there's always a market for it. But it needs money spent on it to bring it up to a saleable condition in today's market. And maybe you've tested it for a few months on the market, the offers are too low, or you're not really getting any bites. So essentially what you're doing is you're coming in and you're performing a flip under that person's ownership. So you're avoiding the costs of purchasing the property. So your legals, your stamp, your interest, your arrangement fees, everything like that. So for a lot of deals that I look at, they could be a great flip, but all the profit is swallowed up in the purchasing costs. So this avoids those purchasing costs and allows you to take those as a profit.
Right. So Mrs. Smith is selling her late mother's home.
I love this. My nan's called Mrs. Smith.
Look
so
at
it's
me.
a great example.
I know it. It's my witchy powers. And I've seen the property online.
Yeah.
I'm you. And I've seen the property online. And I'm like, I reckon that's been on there for 6 months, a period of time. I'm going to approach that person and say to them, I'm going to renovate their house and then we're going to sell it for more. Is it that?
In a roundabout way, but the main thing is you need to find out what their motivation is first. Because for some people, it could be price. For other people, it could be the speed of getting it sold. So it might not work for them because they need to sell it quick. If you've got to do works, then that's not going to work.
Yeah.
It could be that there's too much of an emotional attachment and they're struggling to let it go. Yeah. So a solution might be that you'll do everything. You'll empty the house, you'll get all the furniture out and everything like that. So you don't know how to sell to someone until they've told you. And the way you find that out is through asking skillful questions. So we have to identify a couple of things, why they're looking to sell, but also why it hasn't sold. And then we can use that to then build up our kind of approach and our pitch as to what we're going to do and why that benefits them.
How are you contacting these people? It feels like quite a ballsy thing to do.
Well, I come from a sales background. So before I was in property, I was in sales for 15 years. So I was a sales and business coach before I came into the property space. So I didn't come into the property space with property knowledge. I came in with being able to basically sell whatever somebody gave me. So I think my approach, like you said, is quite ballsy because I'm used to closing deals.
So anybody listening to this, I think, well, how are you doing that? Step by step, you would do what? You'd see the property online, and then how do you know how to contact that person?
Yeah, so I would look for deals that typically have been on the market, let's say, for about 2 to 3 months. And the reason I go for that time frame is because that's typically the time frame of a standard estate agency agreement. And it puts the estate agents in quite a vulnerable position that at any point they could get disinstructed. So all of those months' works, all those viewings and the travelling and the marketing, the phone calls, there is a high risk that they potentially may not get paid for any work that they've done. Yeah. So they're in a position where they're willing to look at other ways of trying to get this shifted. Because you think about it, it's not great as a look for an estate agent to have a property that's been on the market for 3 months, 4 months, 5, 6 months. So if you can come up with a creative way that you can help both the owner of the property but also the agent keep face and keep their commission, then it's kind of like a win-win. And we would give our opinion on why we think the property hasn't sold, what needs to happen in order for the property to sell. We would give them a price that we would agree now. So let's say 100,000, and we would say, right, it needs 20,000 spent on it, and we think the end value would be 150. We would invoice for that difference on completion. So the property would get sold, could be via the estate agent, or we might have private buyers, would sell it for 150, would invoice for the 50 on completion. We got our 20 grand back that we outlaid and 30 grand profit. This
is fascinating. I didn't know about this. Yeah, this is great. So interesting. I mean, my own personal residential home, I actually own with an ex-partner, very open about this kind of topical conversations. We can't shift it. We can't sell it. And it's like, I'm thinking I'm just going to give it to you. Maybe you can do something with it.
Sure we can, yeah.
I wonder if it needs the renovating. So in that scenario, one of the problems I believe we can't sell our house for as well is the property market, the price that we bought it for 2-3 years ago is substantially more than what the market price is now.
Okay.
So what happens in that scenario to you as the person who spent the money developing it, and then when it comes to selling, the property market's crashed and you only get your 20 grand back? But I guess it's quite an uplift. That how much are you going to reasonably lose in that scenario?
Well, it's time frame as well. So I'm quite risk adverse. So I want to get in and out as quickly as possible. So I'm not looking at knocking down walls, doing full refurbs. Mine are very much like decorating, a change of carpet, maybe changing the boiler or the heating system, touching up the kitchen, whatever it might be. But I'm never going back to brick or anything like that. So I'm typically in and out in like 3 weeks on.
So the market's unlikely to substantially reduce over that period of time.
And then profit margins, it has to be a minimum of 200% ROI. So if I put 10,000 in, we need to make a clean profit of 20. So that's the bare minimum margin. So that is, if there is any down valuations or fluctuations, 20,000 is quite a big amount on a, let's say, 100 grand property. But some of the ones that we've done, we've made over 500%.
Really? Wow. Just from like decorate, like how substantial was the renovation on that one?
So the 500, it was 557%. And that was literally painting the entire property white, cleaning the carpets, fixing a tiny bit of damp on the back wall. And then I think I spent an afternoon just cartering the patio and the driveway. And that was the extent of it, because people couldn't see past 50
nuts.
shades of the rainbow in one property. So yeah, it was 50 litres of white emulsion over the course of a week and just making it more presentable. And then we got a tenant in there and then sold it to an investor.
Wow. I mean, I have so many questions about this because this is so fascinating. Why can't the estate agent tell the person who's selling the house, bro, just paint your house? Like, why aren't they helping them do that?
I think, honestly, a lot of agents don't care. I think...
But then won't they get more commission?
They would, but it's also... I think the thing with agents is that they're typically targeted on instructions. So they need to get instructions on quick. I think if it means that they're delaying their instructions
and not hitting
targets, and also just a lot of landlords just aren't interested in putting properties back to the position they should have been in. If they're selling it, they just look like they're spending money for someone else to benefit from. And some people just genuinely don't have the money to do the works as well.
Yeah, also true, yeah.
And other people just don't know. Like for some deals that we do, it's not even about painting. It's purely a case of getting it from a EPC E to a C. And that might just be loft insulation, thermostat and LED light bulbs.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't know that. And that changes the whole course of what interest rates you can get on your mortgage because it's more energy efficient. So it opens it up to a different buyer pool.
Fascinating. And you spoke there in those examples about, you used £10,000 as an example. Is that because you can do it with as little as 10,000? I mean, for me personally, as a multiple businesses, I find I can make businesses quicker and easier than needing 100 grand for deposit for a house, which is what puts me off a lot of house stuff or property stuff personally. I know obviously there's many other creative strategies I hear from my friends, but I actually didn't know about this one. So are you saying that, you can enter to market on this with like 10 grand, 5 grand?
Yeah, less. I mean, like I think the least I've ever put in is I don't know, like 1,000. It was like really minor works to make 3 or 4 in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
The most I've personally put in is 7, and the most we've done on an assisted sale for refurb is 20. But on this particular refurb, we got the seller to pay for all the refurb works, and we took all the uplift.
How did that work? How did you convince them of that? I love that.
So it's like I said to you, you need to find out the motivation and why they're selling and why it hasn't sold. And this was a divorce going through, and the husband didn't want there to be any money remaining to be split between him and the wife. So we obviously we agreed that we were happy to we agreed we were happy to help him with that, and told him what needed to be done in the property. It was circa 22 grand, I think it was, needed to be spent. It was actually a non-compliant HMO, so we wouldn't have been able to sell it anyway, and we took the full uplift on it. So so we didn't put any money in on that one, and they did. So that's what I like about it. So many creative ways. Like, you can start off by just suggesting it to them and see if they're willing to do it, just as like a little trial close, and then you can obviously take it on. But we set this part of the business up with a bounce back loan during COVID. So it's the cheapest money that you'll ever borrow, a £50,000 bounce back loan at 2%. And then you just pay the monthly payments back now. You don't even need to pay it all back because you just never know when you're going to need that money.
Wow. And you mentioned then that was a HMO. So when you are looking at properties to approach, is it always a particular type is better, or do you just find any of them that are just a bit run down, or is there particular ones that people should be looking out for?
I'm just looking for the margin and demand. So
it can be a resi as well as like someone's family home.
It can be a resi, and resi is great because the valuations on resi mortgages in comparison to buy-to-let mortgages typically are higher, we're experiencing. So if we can sell to a homeowner occupier over an investor, then it's not based on affordability, it is bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
So we're getting more. And also homeowner occupiers will go over the asking price as opposed to investors wanting below market value. So if we can get a good property in a good area that has a high demand for homeowner occupiers, then you can get people bidding with each other and get above the asking.
Wow. And when you're looking at these properties, are you looking only near to, I appreciate this is probably a silly question, but I don't think any question is a silly question, actually. So when you're not looking as near to you, you can go the whole country and you'll be doing research on that area?
Yeah, so I don't do anything within, I'd say, 150 miles of where I live.
Is there a reason for that?
Cost. So a 3-bedroom semi where I live is $850, whereas a 3-bed semi where I typically look starts from around 100.
Wow.
So affordability wise, it's much better. The labour costs are a lot lower as well.
I guess if you spend like 5 grand on a 100 grand property, by my maths, that's like 5%, which is still quite a big amount,
It is, but the labour costs here would probably be, for the works we do, that would be like a day's work for the amount of staff that we get on a property up north.
Is that to turn it over quick, so you want lots of people on the property?
Get it done, yeah. So we typically have, like, for a whole house, 3 people painting, someone doing the garden on the same day. Just get it all done, in and out, get it on the market.
Yeah.
Because with this, you have a time frame on your contract as well. So there is an element of risk. It's obviously not all sort of singing and dancing. Like, there is an element of risk. So the risk is that your contract may run out and then you've got to hand the property back.
Right.
So you've just got your property back with a nice shiny new kitchen and bathroom, for
Yeah.
instance. So there's an element of you need the speed in order to stick to your contract,
Yeah.
your timeframes.
Have you ever had anybody where you've handed it back to them and they're like, well, cheers, I don't want to sell it anymore because it looks great?
I haven't. I have.
Is that a risk?
Yeah, there is a risk. But I think it's, if you're selective with the stock that you take on because you know that there's a demand or you know that you already have an end buyer in mind for it, I typically will know what stock to take on. I wouldn't take something on and not know that I've got a strong demand beforehand. So I've had it where the buyer has pulled out after my contract term has ended, and I thought, if I have to tell the seller, there's a high probability here that he won't let me sell the property again and find a new buyer.
Right.
So I continued to look for a buyer in the background, and then I replaced that buyer and got them to use the same solicitor, and we just told the seller that he got declined for a mortgage, so we've had to replace him with his friends had to take it on.
Yeah.
And some people say, oh, well, that's not right for the seller, but I thought, you know what, I've got $5,500 on this, so
Yeah. Either way, the property's still sold, right? So
it's still sold. They still got the price they wanted, and we got the commission and saved our $5,500.
Yeah, amazing. It sounds like, obviously at the start, I very much simplified how this process happened, because it really sounds like you have a lot of systems and structures in place in order to make this run like clockwork. You know, I noticed that with ILA. We do such high volumes. People are like, how do you do that? And it's actually just solid systems and processes and structures. Sounds like this applies here. Maybe you have certain teams in certain areas that can step in and do the work very quickly, and contracts. And what do people need?
Contacts, for sure. So, I mean, I don't have my own teams, and I deal with anywhere from the Midlands upwards. If there's a story, if there's a deal, if it hits my target audience, then I'll deal with it. So I rely on working with good agents that have teams in place that we can deploy to go and do the work. So typically I'll speak to letting agents, just ask them what contractors they use for their clients, because obviously they're doing works every single day of the week, and then we employ those, and then we try to get them the instruction for the lettings.
Yeah. Awesome. That's really interesting. It's so interesting. I feel like there's so many questions I could ask about this topic, but I also do want to share with the listeners, because you have such a wealth of experience, if you have any other strategies that, I mean, I said this is like, people might listen to this and be like, I know all about that. I didn't know about this. So I think you're able to share all these creative strategies. That's the whole point of this topic of conversation. Is there any others that you're like, this is also an epic one that people need to hear about?
I think title splitting, that's pretty good. I started off 9 years ago, title splitting, which is very different to what it is now, because there's been changes in like leaseholds and stuff like that. But we would look for blocks of apartments. So our standard apartment would be, let's say, in Manchester or Liverpool. And let's say it was a block of 10 one-bed apartments, and the list price is £1 million, so about 100 grand per unit. And what we would do is we would approach the seller and say, look, we can help you sell this. It's been on the market for a while, but we would need to sell these units individually to our investors. Right. And we would look at what the market value is, the breakup value of the unit. So let's say they're worth 120,000. You're obviously getting a discount by buying in bulk, all 10. Mm-hmm. We would agree 100 grand with the vendor, and we'd sell them for, let's say, 110. So our investors were getting £10,000 discount, and we were making a £10,000 uplift. And we would sell all 10 of those, and then we would complete on the freehold, or we would back to back the freehold, which we purchased for £1, and we would sell that for tens of thousands.
Yeah, amazing. And again, not your own money. You're finding investors to buy.
Investors, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes we would use the unit money, the sales, to basically pay the vendor, and whatever was left we completed on for £1. So it might be out of the 10 units, there was enough money to sell 9 units and then inherit the final unit for £1 and the freehold for £1. So you effectively get it for free.
Yeah.
And that's where I started 9 years ago. started on that strategy.
And that strategy is still going strong now? Because a lot of strategies seem to change.
It is, yeah. The freeholds aren't worth as much as they were, and I would say people are more cautious of investing into flats now because of like rising service charges and stuff like that. But yeah, there's lots of people title splitting. I see more of it happening now with mixed use, so commercial on the bottom and a couple of flats above.
Right.
And if you can sell one or the other to retain the other one, then that works. So if you can sell the flats, which means you get a free commercial unit and you're getting the rent off of that, then that works quite well.
Amazing. And this type of work, people learning about this in your, is it Training Made Simple is one of your community spaces, and people are able to learn about this through you, because I mean, there's so much in there, isn't there? Like, how do people get investments, right? That's, I think, something that I think I've heard you talk about this before on like the use of social media and LinkedIn. Like, are you saying I have a project and I have the opportunity for people to invest? Like, how are you, are you sharing that with the world? Because how do people know, right?
I share about it after it's done, because the property world is very shark infested. So if you talk about things that haven't completed yet and things that you're working on, there's always someone that wants to come behind you and take it. So we talk about things once they've happened and use that as a case study example.
Amazing, right.
And then people will reach out and say, I'd love to do a deal like this.
I see.
But we've made the mistake before of talking about something whilst it's going through with good intentions, and then somebody comes in and outbids you, and then you've lost a good idea and a good bit of money.
Because I guess if you put a post out saying, looking for £10,000 investment, I message you saying, what is the deal? Send me all the details. And then I just take that and do it myself in some way. Is that what's happening?
I mean, like if I'm selling a deal to someone, then I would only advertise it if I have a exclusivity agreement and an NDA signed and a non-circumvention agreement as well. So I wouldn't get circumvented that way. But if I were working on a creative deal where we were doing a title split or an option agreement or an assisted sale, I wouldn't discuss that with anyone until it had completed, just from experience that people will approach the seller, approach the agent. They might offer a little bit more or offer to complete in a quicker time frame or whatever it might be. So yeah, you just got to keep your powder dry until the money's in the till. Yeah,
because I mean, I've heard like a few different kind of places throughout these, although these things are very exciting. You've dropped in like, different contracts that you have in place. And I think that's, I know like, in business, we get so excited about the opportunities that sometimes we forget about that part, right? Having the legalities in place to protect ourselves. And I think that's maybe something that you teach, where it's like we've got all these creative strategies, but how are we also structuring it, protecting ourselves, having these agreements in place? Would you say that's also just as important as learning the strategies themselves?
It's vital. I've actually, before I came here, I had a one-to-one with two of my clients, and we were talking about building out their contracts right now and what needs to be included to send to the contract writer. And I said the biggest thing here isn't about your fee. It's about how you protect your buyer, how you protect your seller, how you protect everything. Like the protection is the biggest thing. Otherwise, we're effectively charities. We're doing loads of unpaid work. So having these non-disclosure agreements so that your deal isn't passed around every WhatsApp or Facebook group, having non-circumvention agreements so that the buyer doesn't go around you straight to the seller, or the agent doesn't go directly to your buyer, whoever it is. You've just got to protect yourself. And I've done it in the past on handshakes and trust and relationships, and it might work one or two times, but once that relationship's there, they take advantage of it. So it's just business. Yeah, and do you know what? It's really refreshing to hear this, because and creates a level of safety for me, even listening to it and thinking, God, can I get involved with some of these things? But I imagine for anyone listening to it, because you see a lot of advertisement in the property finance world that's like, I'll make you have 10 grand months, that's everywhere. And some of that could be true from people who actually genuinely are making that money, 100 grand months, 10 grand months, whatever it is that you're aspiring to. But something that worries me is there's a lot of like the hype. It's like, see me in my Ferrari, but actually, have you got a contract? Have you got these bolts and braces to protect the life you're building, right? Yeah. So it's really nice to hear you talk about that too. And if people listening to this kind of resonate with that and think, Joe, actually, I want to work with someone who's, being grounded and honest about the opportunities, as well as how we protect ourselves, how I structure my business, where can people get this information from you within an academy or training, and how can people contact you to find out more? Any of the socials, Paul Stapleton, LinkedIn's probably the best one, or visit one of our company pages. Property and Entrepreneur Summit is probably one of the best ones. There's lots of free advice and loads of free webinars that we do and free events. So Property Entrepreneur Summit or Paul Stapleton.
Amazing. Thank you, Paul. You've been fantastic. Definitely given me some thoughts to think about here. I think we're going for dinner after this, and I'm absolutely going to be saying to you, how do I get involved with this? So thank you so much. I'm really excited for this to go out and people to hear this. If you need Paul, you've heard how to contact him. I'll be sharing the details on the bottom of the podcast on YouTube and on all our social media. So do reach out to Paul. We'd be happy to help. And make sure you tune in next time for your 20-minute bite-sized info. We'll speak soon. Mwah.